joined by Mr. Eugene Kabilika, who's a member of the Zambia Alliance for Agroecology and Biodiversity. Mr. Kabilika, good to have you. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you today?
Great, great things. How is the morning?
The morning is okay. I'm privileged to have listened to the discussion you had.
Great.
And it also links up to actually what we are going to discuss a bit about biodiversity, as well as biotech and biosafety.
Right.
Because if we don't have information, like, we cannot know what is going on.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of pressure from all over. Sometimes people who are in this research of manipulating genes, in some countries it is very restrictive, so they run away to other countries try to have a leeway to do whatever they like. So that's some connection in terms of access to information.
All right, I think we can start on this note. You could maybe give a background to the policy review and also the Zambia Alliance for Agroecology and Biodiversity. Maybe just a brief background to that.
Yeah, the background to the review, actually, like your opening statement stated, somewhere around 2017, there was a desire by the then government to review this process. Where is this review coming from? If you remember going back during Manawasa's time, in 2003, Manawasa refused to accept GMOs to come into this country. That time there was hunger in Zambia. Then he said, Zambians can die, but we are not going to accept GMOs. Why? Because we are not sure what impact these genetically modified organisms would have on the Zambians when they consume them.
Right.
Do they cause disease or what? We are not sure. There was no scientific proof to say that they were safe. So when you are not sure of things, you take precautions. So precautionary measures are supposed to be taken in so that you are not caught off guard.
Yes.
Yeah, by the consequences of consuming genetically modified organisms. And so the government of Manawasa put into action a Biosafety and Biotechnology Act.
Yes.
And also policy, and then set up the authority, Biosafety Authority, which is still functioning up to now. This authority is the one that regulates the coming in and the research that can be done in biotech. This is biology you're talking about.
Biology, yes, exactly.
Manipulating genes and all that in medicine, in agriculture and all that. So this is where we're coming from. So the Manawasa biosafety law and also the biosafety policy was restrictive. It was not open. Right. So the question of no GMOs was still alive, and it was based on the precautionary principle that if you are not sure about the consequences of any biotech that you may use, you are better either not to do it, or you take precautions, and you make sure that whoever causes problems after they've done the research or manipulated genes, they pay for it.
Exactly.
That's what the Act and the policy was all about. But 2017 is an attempt now to reform it, to change it, and to open it up so that it is easier for people who are working in the lab manipulating genes to be able to release these genetic materials either in the environment or research around the crops and all this kind of stuff. This is the background to the changes that are being proposed. All
right, beautiful. And as ZAAB, how or why do you think there was not so much consultation? And to that effect, how do you have loved it to be, taken into consideration?
In the previous government, we were actually get crashing. You know what great crashing is? Yeah, if you are not invited to a disco,
then you just find your way in there.
Yeah, because we are hearing that they are changing. ZAB is an alliance of civil society organizations in Zambia who are interested in protection of the environment.
Yes.
And also protection of indigenous seed systems, and who are interested in moving towards growing crops using organic methods. Right. And we call that agroecology. So the entire protection of the environment and making sure that our production of food is done in a natural way, because that is more nutritious to the human beings and it is safe. We do not manipulate anything. So we want to grow crops that are very nutritious. So all organizations and farmer groups and individuals, that are subscribed to that are members of ZAP. So our members, they are main members, and these members are connected to some farmers. So, you know, I mean, the numbers of farmers are quite large. So from that end, none of these members that I've mentioned, such as grassroots, Caritas,
yes,
they are members of that. Solidaridad, and other civil society organizations. When we asked them, were you consulted when this review was taking place? All of them said, no, we don't know. So that's why we're saying the consultation was not done as much as we would have loved to. Like I said, in the previous government, we were sort of forcing our way into it. We hear that the authority was changing. That time it was the Minister of Science, Education and Education and Science that was responsible for this change of. We forced our way to the Livingstone meeting that we are reviewing the policy through our negotiation with that, and then we made our presentation. But what we have discovered is that all the suggestions that we had been making during that time have not found themselves in the draft policy at the moment. They are still insisting on opening up the country. They are still insisting on removing some of the principles that are key to the protection of the Zambians as well as the environment in Zambia, in as far as genetically modified organisms are concerned.
And this is where it leads to my next question. What are some of your greatest concerns about this draft policy?
The draft policy, like we have said, is it does not. First of all, let me say that it seems not to pay attention to the provisions in the international protocols,
right? Which
always emphasize that where there are issues around biotechnology and where people are researching on genes, now we're talking about gene drive, yes. The current new technology that are happening, yeah. And literally genetic engineering or cutting off genes and putting other genes, and even manufacturing genes unnaturally. So there are all these things that are happening. Now, if you open up and people can be able to do research without any precaution that you are taking, then it becomes our problem. We are concerned because if you come to crop, agriculture, let me put it this way. If it comes to agriculture, then it means people will be changing genes of different, species of crops, distorting the natural food that we have, and then impacting on the health of individuals. That is our concern. The other concern that we have in this policy is that they have tried to water down the precautionary principle, which I talked about. The precautionary principle exists in our international agreement, and it is a safeguard to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Because if anything goes wrong, can you imagine? Let me give you an example. People have genetically modified a mosquito, and they bring this mosquito and want to release it in the environment. Who knows what is going to happen? Now, if your law allows such a thing to happen, it means they will release these mosquitoes in the environment and begin to mate with the normal natural mosquitoes. Who knows what will happen? Because this is very difficult for you to recall the genes. You say, no. Something has gone wrong. Can I recall the genes? You can't do that.
No, definitely.
They are going replicating everywhere.
Everywhere.
So this precautionary measure which they are watering down, we are concerned as ZAP. Then thirdly, I said that they are not linked to the protocols. Also to the Zambian Constitution. The Zambian Constitution, under the section of the environment, is very clear. Whoever causes any damage to the environment must pay for it. And it's a principle in the Constitution. So you can't water down in the policy, because the Constitution says all policies and laws must subscribe to the provisions in the Constitution.
Exactly.
Yeah. So if the Constitution is saying something and you are also doing another thing, then your policy is null and void.
Could it be the reason why you're more concerned even with now having the live GMOs in Zambia?
Yeah, live GMOs in Zambia, because we are not sure and we have no capacity to be able to measure what repercussion and even to identify whether they are live GMOs or they are not. At the moment, we have a number of products that are coming. They are not live. If you go to Pick and Pay ShopRite, just pick cornflakes. You see in very tiny written words that this is made from genetically
modified organisms.
So if you are skeptical about eating that, run away from eating it, because you don't know the consequences of eating genetically modified organisms. Otherwise, we start asking a question: why do we have increased cancer in the country?
Right.
Where is it coming from?
But also, does this not call for the building of the capacity for us to be able to handle such situations?
Precisely. Before we build that capacity, we must not make laws that make it easy for scientists, for researchers, and others to be able to guinea pig Zambians, to research with these Zambians, make sure that we pay the consequences. And those who are researching do not pay any consequences at all. That's why the law must be very strict. And in fact, any law, for me, that does not pay attention to the provisions of the Constitution on the environment should not even go ahead. If we want to make this biosafety and biotechnology law, the first thing that we must do is to adhere to the provision of the Constitution. And the spirit of the policy must be the spirit by which the Constitution is directing us to make that law. Then that law will pay attention to the needs of the Zambians. It will protect the rights of Zambians, the right to safe food,
yes,
the right to safe and healthy environment, the right to, to knowledge and to know what is going on. And that's why we are saying we are not consulted. If ZAB is not consulted, I wonder, do the Zambians know? Even the
Possibly
knowledge...
not.
No. And even media. We've been talking to our friends in media. They say, what is this? I know this kind. Because, I mean, like my colleague was saying in the previous program of access to information.
Yes.
That's why you find that there's a headmaster, but there's no school. If we had access to information, that was not going to happen.
Yes.
If we had access to information, even when policies are being formulated, then we would know exactly who is pushing this policy, who is behind the policy.
Right.
Who wants to open up the country to have GMOs coming in, flowing in, and to experiment and release these genetically modified organisms in the environment? Who is interested in that? I don't think Zambians would be very comfortable.
All right. And finally, Mr. Kabilika, as we end the conversation, what is your appeal now to the government?
Our appeal to the government is this policy, the draft policy that they have, they must withdraw it so that there is wider consultation. All of us must know what it is. We must also see what implication it may have to our agriculture, to our health, and any other related matters. Yeah, to think of it, it is scary that a person can actually engineer unnaturally an organism to become whatever they want by cutting off genes. This is technical stuff.
Yeah.
If they say, oh, this gene makes these people black, let us remove the gene that makes them black so that we insert a gene that makes them white.
All right.
So the entire population can change color. But God, I think, does not like that. Because in Genesis, God already warned human beings. There's a whole section of the Bible. And I'm appealing to Zambians who call them some Christians, and those who are supporting genetically modified food, to read the Leviticus. Where it says that, I warn you not to mate dogs with sheep. Don't mate cows with donkeys. In other words, don't change the genetic makeup of a cow, or genetic makeup of a donkey. But this time, because of science, mating cannot actually be mating in a natural way. You can just get genes and then create a completely different organism by getting genes from a dog and putting genes from a cow.
All right.
What is the product? Who knows what will happen to the product? And you read that in the environment. I caught a man.
Mr. Eugene Kabilika, huge thanks, for making an appearance on the Breakfast Show this morning.
Thank you so much.
All right, great.
I wish you all the best.
All right, thank you so much.